They thought all hope was lost. Then a human warship emerged from the void. Part 1. The stars burned red over the dying world of Vartanheim. In the dark, shattered orbit, pieces of destroyed ships floated like broken glass. The alien fleet of the Valari Alliance was on its last breath. Every ship that still moved was damaged. Every captain tired, every soldier hopeless. Captain Rael Torvin stood on the bridge of the Valen's Promise, watching another explosion light up the void. His long gray skin shimmered in the dim light as his second officer Turla reported the losses. Third wing destroyed, Captain. Only 12 ships remain in fighting condition. Rael's throat tightened. 12 ships against the Karth Dominion, a machine empire that had already eaten half the galaxy. The Karth were not living things, they were steel and hunger, consuming planets for fuel, burning everything else. Hold the line, Rael said quietly. His voice was calm, though his heart raced. Protect the transports until they reach the wormhole. If we fail, our people die. The crew obeyed even though everyone knew what hold the line really meant. It meant die here. On the main screen, massive Karth ships moved like black daggers through the stars. Their energy beams cut through shields, tearing through metal and life alike. One of the Valari ships tried to ram them. It exploded in a flash of light. Admiral Kessery, the oldest of them, appeared on Rael's comm screen. Her voice was tired. Rael, we cannot win. Order your people to abandon their posts. The Dominion will not stop. Rael shook his head. If we flee, they will follow. Someone must stay and fight. The Admiral sighed. You sound like the humans of the old stories. Brave, foolish, and doomed. Rael gave a small smile. Then let us be fools once more. Outside, the stars flickered as the battle went on. The Valari fired their plasma cannons, blue light striking against black Karth armor, but the enemy ships did not stop. They were too many. Too strong. Hours passed. Every moment was filled with fire and loss. The bridge shook again and again. The Valen's Promise had no shields left. The air smelled of burned circuits. Tirla whispered, Captain, we can't take another hit. Rael nodded slowly. He looked at the glowing image of his home world on the screen. Valara Prime. A green world far away, now silent. No messages had come from it in days. Maybe it was already gone. He pressed the comm button. All ships, this is Captain Torvin. We have done our duty. Evacuate who you can. Save the civilians. We'll hold the enemy here for as long as possible. Static filled the channel, followed by short, broken replies of respect and sorrow. Then something strange happened. Captain, Tirla cried. Something's happening on the scanners. Rael turned. The tactical display flickered, showing a deep ripple in space like a hole tearing open. Kessery's voice shouted over comms. The Dominion has unleashed a new weapon. Fall back! But it didn't look like any Dominion weapon. The tear in space grew brighter and brighter until it blinded the sensors. Rael squinted through the observation window. The void itself twisted. Out of that impossible brightness came a shadow, dark and enormous. Then came another sound. A deep metallic hum that shook the air like thunder. Something was coming through. The crew held their breath. Then, out of the glowing rift, a colossal ship appeared, bigger than anything the Valari had ever seen. Its hull was black with silver lines that glowed faintly blue. Its shape was angular, human-like in design, but no one could believe it. Tirla gasped. What is that? Rael stared, eyes wide. That's impossible. On the hull, through the drifting light and ash, he saw ancient letters burned and faded by time. UNSV Resolute. He knew those letters. He had seen them only in old records from stories older than their oldest cities. Humans, Rael whispered. That's a human ship. The bridge fell silent. Every crew member looked at him in shock. But humans are extinct, Tirla said. They vanished after the solar collapse 500 years ago. Rael did not answer. He couldn't, his mind raced. Humanity had once been the great power of the galaxy. Explorers, builders, and warriors. They had fought beside the Valari during the First Machine War, then disappeared into the dark after their own home system died. Everyone believed they were gone forever. But now, here, in the last moments of the Valari fleet, a human warship had come from the void. The Resolute floated silently for a moment, its hull gleaming like a black mountain. The Karth ships halted, scanning the new arrival. Even the machines seemed uncertain. Then a voice filled the comm systems of every surviving ship. It was deep, calm, and carried power. "This is Admiral Jonah Reeves of the United Nations Stellar Vanguard," the voice said. "To all living forces in this system, hold your fire. Humanity has returned." Tirla's eyes widened. "It's real." "They're real." Rael gripped the command console. "Patch me through," he said. He spoke into the comm. "Admiral Reeves, this is Captain Rael Torvin of the Valari Alliance. If you truly are human, then you come at the end of all things." The human voice replied, steady and cold. "Captain Torvin, we received your distress signals. The Dominion threatens all life. We will not allow them to continue." Before Rael could respond, the Resolute moved. Its engines glowed with bright blue fire, bending space itself. It aimed its massive forward cannon toward the largest Karth battleship. The beam that followed was not light. It was pure silence made visible. The Karth ship vanished in an instant, torn apart by invisible energy. Gasps filled the Valari bridge. One shot, and the unstoppable Dominion warship was gone. The Resolute fired again and again. Each blast was a storm of impossible power. The Karth fleet began to fall apart, their formations broken, their AI systems confused. For the first time in centuries, the machines retreated. Rael could hardly believe what he saw. "Their weapons, their energy output, it's beyond anything in our records." Tirla whispered, "How did they survive in the void?" Rael didn't answer. He just watched, speechless, as the Resolute cut through the enemy like a blade through shadow. The Dominion ships turned away, scattering toward deep space. Then, as quickly as it came, the human warship ceased fire. The glow of its cannons faded, and it drifted closer to the Valari lines. Rael opened a private channel again. "Admiral Reeves, you have saved what remains of us. But why now? Why return?" There was a pause. Then the human voice answered, "Because we heard them coming. And because when life is hunted, humanity answers." The comm fell silent. For a long moment no one spoke. The Valari stared at the great black warship as it hung quietly in space, like a guardian out of legend. The battle was over, but the meaning of what they had seen was only beginning to sink in. On the surface of Varta 9, survivors looked up to see the light of the human ship cutting across the sky. Children pointed and asked what it was. The elders whispered the old word, humans, and cried. Rael turned to his crew. "Signal the other ships. Tell them hope has returned." Tirla smiled weakly. "Do you think they'll stay, Captain?" "The humans?" Rael looked out at the stars. "No one knows. But if they came once, maybe they will come again." As he watched, the rift in space behind the Resolute shimmered faintly as if waiting. The human warship's engines began to glow once more. Then a final message came through. "Stand ready, Valari. The Dominion is not finished. We will return." And with that, the UNSV Resolute turned toward the void, disappearing into the same rift it had come from. The light faded and the stars returned to silence. But this time, the silence was no longer hopeless. Captain Rael stood on his bridge, breathing slowly, a faint smile on his face. He whispered to himself, "They thought all hope was lost." Until humanity came back. Outside, among the wreckage and drifting stars, the last Valari ships formed up once more. Hope had returned to the galaxy, not from gods or miracles, but from the courage of an ancient species that refused to stay gone. And somewhere, beyond the edge of space, the humans prepared for war. They thought all hope was lost. Then a human warship emerged from the void. Part 2. For 3 long days after the Battle of Varta 9, the Valari ships drifted in silence. The wrecks of the Dominion fleet floated like dead giants across the dark sky. Survivors worked to repair their engines, counting every breath as a gift. Captain Rael Torvin stood on the bridge of the Valen's Promise, staring at the space where the human warship had vanished. The stars looked normal again, calm and endless, but he knew what he had seen was no dream. "Their technology," whispered Tirla, his second officer. "It broke every law of physics we know. How can something like that exist?" Rael did not answer. He simply said, "Because they were always different." Then suddenly the scanners lit up again. A message burst through the static. "This is Admiral Jonah Reeves of the UNSV Resolute," the deep voice said. "Do not be alarmed. We are returning." Every Valari on the bridge looked at each other in disbelief. Within seconds, the space ahead began to shimmer. The same rift opened once more, glowing blue and silver, and the giant human warship appeared again. But this time it was not alone. 3 smaller ships followed behind it, sleek and dark. Rael's heart raced. They brought a fleet. The communication screen blinked, showing a man's face for the first time. Admiral Reeves looked older than any Valari expected. A human with gray hair, lined skin, and eyes that held centuries of experience. "Captain Torvin," Reeves said calmly. "We've analyzed the enemy remnants. The Dominion has more hives moving toward this sector. If we don't strike first, you'll all be erased." Rael replied, "We will fight beside you, Admiral. But our ships are few and damaged." Reeves nodded once. "Then we'll fight smarter, not harder." He turned to someone off-screen and spoke commands in short human words the translator could barely keep up with. Within moments, the smaller human ships began to release glowing drones that moved around the Valari vessels, fixing broken armor and restoring power. Tirla gasped. "They're repairing us." In just minutes, systems that had been dead for days came back to life. Shields hummed again, weapons lit up, and energy filled the decks. "How?" Rael whispered. Reeves answered, his voice still calm. "We learned a few things in the void. Energy there bends differently. Time flows unevenly. We built machines that adapt to both." Rael's eyes narrowed. "You were gone for 500 years. What happened to you, Admiral?" Reeves looked at him through the screen. "We died. Then we learned to come back." Before Rael could ask more, a warning alarm filled the bridge. Dominion signatures, hundreds of them, were entering the system. Reeves's tone hardened. "They've returned sooner than expected. Formation Alpha 9, engage." The Valari fleet moved beside the humans, trembling but ready. Out of the black came the Dominion. Vast silver machines shaped like wings and claws, their red eyes glowing with deadly light. The battle began instantly. The Resolute opened fire with beams of pale light that curved through space, destroying enemy ships before they could even lock weapons. The smaller human vessels darted between the Karth ships, releasing gravity bombs that pulled metal apart like paper. The Valari ships, guided by human data links, fired with perfect timing. Each plasma shot hit exactly where a Dominion ship's armor was weakest. "Stay with them," Rael shouted. "Match their pattern." For the first time in his life, Rael felt what victory could truly mean. His ship moved beside the Resolute, its damaged cannons now glowing bright. Together they struck down a massive Karth carrier, the explosion lighting the dark like a sunrise. But the Dominion was not finished. A sudden pulse of red energy rippled across the battlefield. A new ship appeared, larger than the rest, covered in spinning blades and glowing veins. It released a single beam that struck one of the human escorts, tearing it apart in seconds. Rael froze. "Admiral, what is that?" Reeves's face darkened. "That's a hive core vessel. They rarely leave their systems. If it's here, they're desperate." He turned toward his crew. "Arm the Void Lance." The Valari heard the words but did not understand what they meant, until the front of the Resolute began to open like a flower. From its heart came a dark sphere of light, silent and blinding at once. "Everyone, pull back," Reeves commanded. The Resolute fired. No sound followed, just a wave of darkness that rolled across the battlefield. The hive core ship vanished. The Dominion fleet froze, their systems shorting out. One by one, they fell quiet. The silence that followed was absolute. Rael and his crew stared, speechless. The Dominion fleet, hundreds strong, was gone. The Resolute powered down its weapons slowly. Tirla whispered, "That wasn't a weapon. It was like a piece of the void itself." Rael nodded quietly. The humans didn't just survive in the void. They became part of it. When the battle ended, the surviving Dominion wreckage drifted away. The Valari fleet gathered around the human ships, sending words of thanks across every channel. On the Resolute, Admiral Reeves requested a private link. Rael accepted, and soon the human's face appeared again. "You fought well, Captain Torvin," Reeves said. "You reminded my people why we came back." Rael bowed slightly. "And you reminded us that courage can return when least expected." Reeves's eyes softened. "When the solar collapse happened, we thought the galaxy had abandoned us. But out there in the void, we found something different. We found peace for a while. Then we heard the screams again, the signals from dying worlds. That's when we knew it was time." Rael asked softly, "Time for what?" Reeves answered, "Time for humanity to stand again." The Valari captain looked out at the stars. "Then you will stay with us? Help rebuild what's left." Reeves hesitated. "For now. But the Dominion will rise again somewhere else. And when they do, we will go where the war is darkest. Rael smiled faintly. You speak like a myth, Admiral. Reeves gave a small laugh. Perhaps myths are only truths waiting for time to remember them. Over the next days, the humans shared knowledge freely. They helped rebuild Valari stations, restored communication beacons, and trained engineers in new methods of defense. They even gifted the Valari with a small shard of void energy, a fragment that powered ships for centuries. For the first time in generations, the Valari began to believe the galaxy could heal. But Admiral Reeves remained distant. He spent long hours staring into the star map, silent and thoughtful. One night, Rael visited him aboard the Resolute. The ship's corridors were clean and strange, filled with soft light that felt alive. You plan to leave soon, Rael said. It wasn't a question. Reeves nodded. There are other worlds crying for help. The Void Fleet cannot stay in one place too long. The energy that powers us is unstable. If we linger, it will fade. Rael looked around the vast human bridge. Your people risk everything again to protect others. Why? Reeves turned toward the window. Because someone has to. Because once, long ago, others stood for us when we were broken. He looked at Rael and smiled slightly. Now it's our turn. The two captains stood in silence for a while, watching the repaired Valari fleet shining nearby. When the time came, the humans prepared their ships to depart. Valari crews lined their decks to watch. Even the youngest cadets saluted as the Resolute turned toward the rift. Rael opened a final channel. Admiral Reeves, if we call for you again, will you return? The human's voice echoed through every ship. When the stars burn and the machines rise, look to the void. We will be there. The rift opened once more, brighter than before. The human ships entered it one by one, their lights fading into the unknown. When the last trace of the Resolute vanished, the rift closed with a soft shimmer, leaving only quiet starlight behind. Rael stood on his bridge for a long time, his heart heavy but full of hope. Tirla spoke softly. Do you think they'll come back, Captain? Rael smiled. They will. The humans always return. He looked out across the stars, now peaceful for the first time in memory. The galaxy had changed forever. The legend of humanity had become real again. And somewhere beyond space and time, in the deep silence of the void, the UNSV Resolute sailed onward, guardians of life, keepers of hope, and the living proof that even at the edge of darkness, humanity endures.